Gotta stop him.
There's always more to the story.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
And there's always more to say.
Don't ever bring that nonsense in here again.
When going too far feels closer.
Maybe I overdid it.
This space thrives on the restricted. This is the Restricted Area with Robert Guerra.
Yes, sir. It is me, Robert Guerra, Rob G, if you're nasty, checking in on the maiden voyage of the Restricted Area podcast. First, quick background about me. If you don't know already, I have been producing hits for Fox Sports Radio and iHeartMedia for about 15 years now, working with a lot of heavy hitters, Chris Broussard, Kelvin Washington, Jason McIntyre, Rob Parker, Ben Maller. When you're there long enough, you tend to work with a lot of different people. And for a long time, I've been known as the guy behind the guy feeding your favorite host some of their takes, some of their stats, some of their information, and make them sound, big and bombastic and great and phenomenal and all that stuff. Well, now finally, thank you. Shout out to Michael and everybody at Recliner Media. I am now stepping out from behind the glass in front of the microphone to talk to you, give you my takes, my opinions, my outlook on everything in the world of sports and even outside of sports in some instances. And one thing you're going to learn very quickly when it comes to this show is in the restricted area, nothing is off limits. Nothing. So when Russell Westbrook climbs out in the media and he tries to go off on guys, talking about how he's feeling disrespected the way they're talking about him, but can't actually give an example of how they disrespected him and wasn't actually upset about the fact that they have the worst record in the NBA, I got to call you out on it, Russ. I got to do it. Or when Carmelo Anthony comes out and says, Jason Tatum is coming back to play for the Boston Celtics, and he needs to take a step back. He has to have self-awareness about what he's coming into, with Jaylen Brown being an MVP candidate. Someone's got to tell Carmelo, hey, weren't you the one when you were playing with Oklahoma City Thunder and it was you and PG and Russell Westbrook and you said in your introductory press conference, hey, P, they want me to come off the bench. Where was your self-awareness there, Melo? Like, again, there are no sacred cows when it comes to this show. Anybody who says anything or does anything out of pocket is liable to catch this smoke. Hell, if my wife says, actually, no, I can't say that. I can't back that up. If my wife says something crazy, I'm just going to take it because my wife is the best. I love her. She's the best. And she'll kick my ass if I do or say anything stupid on this show. So no, I love you. I wanted to get started with this. I have three big topics that I really want to get to this week. First of which, playing off of something that happened last night, Thursday night in the NBA. Now, I know that I believe most of you guys who are Recliner Media consumers and Recliner Media contributors all live or consume Denver area sports, or you're around the Denver area. So I'm sure many of you were very happy to see that Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, and the Denver Nuggets once again put belt to ass to my Los Angeles Lakers, put it down on them in a big way, even shorthanded. No Aaron Gordon, no Peyton Watson, didn't matter because Nikola Jokic performed like the MVP that he is. If you missed my first article for Recliner Media, I actually wrote it over the weekend. I explained why I didn't like this 65-game rule because it took away from the fact that Nikola Jokic specifically, but SGA to a lesser extent, if they are not eligible to win NBA MVP awards, then this is just a travesty. Like, Nikola Jokic showed out once again against my team that he is the best player in basketball. But I want to focus on one specific thing that happened late in that game that really, grinds my gears. And it involves LeBron James. I told you, no sacred cows here. LeBron James can get it too. Late in the game, LeBron James is in transition, goes up for a layup, gets a little bit of a nudge from Joker. I'm not going to say he didn't. He got nudged a little bit by the Joker in his back. Makes the layup, hits the ground kind of hard, and immediately grabs on his elbow. Immediately screaming, writhing in pain. But if you keep watching the video, he falls, he clutches one elbow, and then he clutches the other elbow. LeBron, which elbow did you hurt, buddy? Were you just selling the call? Were you trying to get some free throws? You're trying to get an and one out of it? And that's one thing that I'm really upset about LeBron James. And it's illustrative of a bigger point I want to make about him. About a week ago, Steve Kerr was on the radio in the Bay Area talking to Mark Willard, friend of the show, friend of mine, actually. Maybe we'll get him on the show later on this season. We'll see. And Willard asked Kerr, who do you think, this is the head of Lakers Warriors, who do you think has had a more of an impact, who has changed the game more? How has the game changed in the 2 decades that Steph and LeBron have been in the NBA? And Steve said he thinks that Steph changed the game a lot and LeBron not so much. And I'm going to disagree with Steve Kerr in that regard. And last night is the perfect example as to one of the reasons how I believe that LeBron James has changed the NBA. The problem is that every change that he has impacted across the league has been for the negative. Case in point, last night he hurts his elbow. Not sure which elbow he actually hurt. Is it the left one? Is it the right one? We'll never know even after the game. You know, he has an ice pack on one, which wasn't the one he was grabbing in the latest part of the video. It didn't make any sense. And LeBron James has made it fashionable for great players to flop. Okay. Back in the day, hopefully you're old enough to remember this. In the late 90s and the early 2000s, the guys who were known as floppers were European players or foreign-born players. Like Vlade Divac was persona non grata, number one. He was the biggest culprit in the league, probably because he had to deal with Shaq so much in the Western Conference. But there were even songs written about him that played on the radio saying floppy Divac. Like that was a thing that existed back then. And then you move forward a couple of years and it was Manu Ginobili. Manu Ginobili made a big, name for himself driving in the lane, not only with the Euro step, which was awesome, but he would also flop and sell a lot of calls. My point being, at that time, flopping and flailing your arms and selling calls and writhing in pain was seen as something that foreign-born players do, number one, or number two, as my headphones fall out, great look on the first episode. This is going to happen. But it was seen as a thing where only the guys who were the lesser physically gifted, lesser talented players would do something like that, right? Like that was the only way they could game the system. It was the international soccer influence of the NBA. And then LeBron James started doing it. And LeBron James, 6'8", 240 in his early years, probably closer to 260, 270 now, started flopping. There's the infamous video where someone swings a ball and he acts like he, got shot in the back of the head and he flies back. And as soon as LeBron James, one of the great players in the NBA at that time, one of the great players of NBA history, started to do it, it suddenly became acceptable for other great players to do it. Chris Paul started to sell calls like a madman. James Harden made millions of dollars selling calls, flopping, flailing his arms, doing whatever he could to get a whistle. And now, most recently, the reigning MVP, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, as great as he is, and again, I believe he belongs in the MVP conversation, you cannot tell me with a straight face that he's not a foul merchant. All right? Like, he has a problem, and it's something that's been pointed out ad nauseum. Mike Brown pointed it out this week. Doris Burke pointed it out on television last week. His flopping has become a problem in the NBA. And that's just one of the ways that LeBron has impacted negatively the NBA. Case in point number two, we just had the All-Star game. The slam dunk contest was horrible. My guy Jackson Hayes put on quite possibly the middiest dunk contest in NBA history. Before LeBron James, it was seen almost as a rite of passage for young NBA stars, particularly athletic NBA stars, to do the dunk contest. Dominique Wilkins, of course, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Vince Carter, Tracy McGrady. Like, if you were an up-and-coming player and you had a little bit of juice, a little bit of bounce to your step, it was expected that you would be the guy to throw his hat in the ring, attempt the dunk contest. LeBron James, who is, in the short list of most ferocious in-game dunkers, in the modern NBA era, never did it. So, what happens when that happens? Naturally, it loses interest. Stars don't want to do it. Other stars don't. Zion never did it. John Morant never did it. You mean to tell me that if LeBron James had done it, that we wouldn't have the next crop of young stars in the dunk contest? Of course we would. And as an offshoot of that, you look at the All-Star game. Now, this year's All-Star game, full disclosure, was great. There finally was some competitiveness. It took 10 years and Adam Silver doing 12 different variations for it to come out in a positive way, but they finally got it right. I maintain that the biggest reason why the All-Star game became the laughingstock that it was for about a decade is based on just one instance. You can check it out on YouTube, go look it up, Google it, however you want to consume your media. 2013, East versus West. Now, I'm not going to say that these guys were always playing hard or that they were, always giving 110%. That's not true. It's not accurate. Don't let anybody try to gaslight you into feeling that way. But they also weren't making a mockery of the sport like we were in the 2020s and the late 2010s. So 2013, East versus West. It's a close game, so when it gets close, you see guys kind of hunker down a little bit. They really want to win. Then the competitive juices start flowing, and you see that happen, right? LeBron James has the ball. Kobe Bryant picks him up full court. Get down his defensive stance. I don't think he slapped the floor, but he might as well have, right? He was really locked in for that possession. He blocks LeBron's shot twice on two different possessions in crunch time. In the final seconds, they're matched up again. I believe the Eastern Conference is down by 2. They have a chance to tie the game, force it to overtime, maybe even win the game, right? Kobe and LeBron one-on-one matched up. What does LeBron do? He passes the ball off. Doesn't even take the shot. And if you look, Kobe kind of side-eyes him. I think Carmelo Anthony kind of side-eyes him. Like, bro, we're in the All-Star game, and you're afraid to take the last shot here, of all places? And that right there was a microcosm, similar to the dunk contest, of the LeBron James experience when it came to the All-Star game and the All-Star weekend. He was more concerned with being embarrassed and looking foolish and losing, for that matter, right? In a game that really doesn't matter, it's an exhibition. But he was so scared of having himself look bad that he'd rather not try. And that attitude spread throughout the NBA for over a decade. That became the mantra for a lot of guys. I mean, we had Anthony Edwards in his first All-Star game. I don't know if you remember this. Like, it was embarrassing what he was doing out there. He was, throwing up left-handed shots. He was walking around. And even Draymond Green, of all people, pointed out, hey, man, I know that, it's the All-Star game. It's not that serious, but you got to put a little bit of effort, right? But that was another example of players following the lead of the best player in the league. That's what happens when you are the face of the NBA. Right or wrong, people are going to do and copy and use you as an example, as a barometer as to what is expected in the NBA. And last but not least, the biggest reason why I believe LeBron has had a negative impact in the NBA, and this is ultimately going to be his legacy for all of his statistical greatness, the player empowerment era. Like, I don't think there's no getting around it, right? Like, once LeBron James made it fashionable to homie hop and join up with some of your friends in the middle of your prime years, the NBA was cooked, right? Because then you got situations like Kevin Durant joining a 73-9 win Warriors team. And, you got James Harden jumping from one team to one team to one team. And it's like every player has decided that they're going to pick their teammates. They're going to act as the de facto GM. They're going to get the coach hired and fired as ever they see fit. Steve Nash being an example, Darvin Ham, for the Lakers. And these guys have decided that unless the deck is stacked 1,000% in their favor, like LeBron James has done historically, then they're, I don't have enough. We don't have enough good players. Like, do you really need to have all the good players for you to compete? Is it that out of the realm of possibility that you and one other guy and a group of role players can achieve a common goal and get to the highest level? And that's why I have so much respect for a guy like Steph Curry, because Steph Curry, like, if you were to just go to a local park or a pickup game, they don't play at parks, you go play at a local gym, and you go back to 2016 or 2015 and you line these guys up on the wall and you say, hey, we are going to have a pickup game between the 2015 Warriors and the 2015 Cavs, but we're going to mix the teams. We want you to just pick guys. You pick one, I pick one, you pick one, I pick one, and so forth. You mean to tell me with a straight face that just in terms of talent, that LeBron James' 2015 Cavs team, all healthy, weren't a better roster than the Warriors? Of course. Like, you would pick LeBron, Kevin Love, and Kyrie 3 of the first 4 picks. And yet, what? Like, that's just, I don't want to get too far into it because the player empowerment, I think this has been talked about ad nauseum for years now. But again, just in summary, LeBron James, for all of his talent, for all of his greatness, and he is at worst, the second best player in NBA history. It's unfortunate that a guy of his stature, a guy of his caliber is going to have such a negative impact on the NBA once it's all said and done. All right, let me switch gears to the NFL. And there was a big trade that took place this week. No, I'm not talking about DJ Moore to the Bills, because apologies to Bills Mafia. DJ Moore is not going to be the difference between you making a Super Bowl and not. You're going to need a hell of a lot more than him if you want to get to that next level. DJ Moore is fine, but he's not a difference maker in that regard. No, the big move of the week, of course, was the Los Angeles Rams acquiring all-pro cornerback Trent McDuffie from the Kansas City Chiefs. And when that happened, of course, like many of you, I was shocked because I was under the impression that the Kansas City Chiefs are in the business of winning. I was under the impression that the Kansas City Chiefs are all in around Patrick Mahomes year in and year out, even if he's coming off an injury. Like that they are in the championship business. And it got me thinking, and it got me doing some research. I believe that Patrick Mahomes made a $500 million mistake in 2020. And you might say, well, Rob, how are you going to make a $500 million mistake? Like, I would kill to have I'd kill to have $500,000. It's all relative. Number one, you see the way that these NBA, NFL professional athlete players are, like, money is a different, construct to them than it is to us common folk. But in case you forgot, July 2020, Patrick Mahomes signs a 10-year, $503 million deal, right? Sounded like, of course, it's a lot of money, right? But even at the time, the Athletic surveyed a group of anonymous agents to get their thoughts on the deal. One agent said, quote, worst deal in the NFL in the last 20 years. Let that sink in. Worst deal in the NFL in the last 20 years. And the problem is twofold. Number one, Patrick Mahomes, if there's anybody who could do it, Patrick Mahomes is the guy who could have set the stage for the next wave of quarterbacks and the next wave of NFL players to get fully guaranteed contracts. If Patrick Mahomes would have flexed his muscle and used his, gravitas to get a fully guaranteed contract, he could have. It might have been a short-term deal, but he could have got it. There's no good reason why in March 2026 that the only fully guaranteed contract in the NFL to date still is Deshaun Watson. That should have happened a long time ago. But to go back to the point about him making a mistake, right? Tom Brady, and we'll get to Tom Brady in a few minutes. Tom Brady and the Patriots perpetuated this myth during their heyday that in order to win Super Bowls, you had to take less than market value. The only way you're going to win and win consistently is if your quarterback takes a hometown deal so they can build out the rest of the roster and so on and so forth. And if you don't take a hometown deal, then you're not serious about winning. You're only worried about your money, yada, yada, yada. You want to know the ugly truth about that? In 5 of Tom Brady's last 6 years, the Patriots spent below the league average in the salary cap. In 5 of Brady's last 6 years, including several Super Bowl teams, the Patriots spent below league average in the salary cap. Robert Kraft did not take the money that Tom Brady saved him and get more weapons. Hell, there's a reason why you have this narrative, even today. Well, you see what Tom Brady did with his receiver, with Wes Welker and Danny Amendola, like Deion Branch. He could turn anybody into a good receiver. That's how good Tom Brady was. Well, don't you think that if he's given all that money back, that Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick and all those guys would have made a point to get some better receivers around him, some better weapons, and you wouldn't just have whatever 2 or 3 year window of Randy Moss, that he would have consistently great weapons year in and year out, right? That's just my expectation. So it brings me back to Patrick Mahomes. Since Patrick Mahomes gave that discount, right? If you looked at maybe the last 4 years, so it's like, because 2020, the contract doesn't kick in, how that kind of thing works, right? We're now in year 4 of a roster purge with the Chiefs. Trent McDuffie traded first round pick to the Rams this week. Before that, Shavarius Ward, all pro. Tyreek Hill, all pro. Joe Tooney, all pro offensive guard. Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger, all pro defensive back. Pro bowler, Orlando Brown Jr., which now they just had to cut Jawan Taylor could try to replace Orlando Brown Jr. They bungled that one. L'Jarius Sneed wasn't an all-pro, but he was a really great player at the time, right? What was the point of taking less money for Patrick Mahomes if you're going to keep losing great players? Isn't the whole impetus behind taking a hometown discount, which, as crazy as it sounds, 10 years, $500 million is a hometown discount in today's NFL? Patrick Mahomes is currently only the 15th highest paid quarterback in terms of average annual value. What's the point of taking less if you can't keep the stars around you? And now what's happened is Patrick Mahomes is being forced to try to make up for a deficient Chiefs roster. I'm not talking out of turn here, guys. Like I've said before this season, if you consume any of the content on Fox Sports Radio or the Straight Fire podcast that I was on before, or I still am actually, but the other gigs that I was doing before I got here, I said before the season that the Chiefs were not going to win the division. I know they were going to make the playoffs, but it's like you could tell the roster deficiencies. They were kind of winning by the skin of their teeth. And like that's not sustainable in today's NFL. And what's happening is Patrick Mahomes is being forced to try to be Superman game in and game out for their team to win. That's part of the reason why, and to me, the biggest reason why, since 2023, Patrick Mahomes has had the 3 worst seasons of his career, at least statistically. I know he's been to the Super Bowl, and people want to say like, oh, well, he's going to the Super Bowl. He's winning games. And it's like, winning is, what does it say? Winning is the best cologne in sports, right? Because it'll mask a lot of the issues. It's going to mask the bad body odor. It's going to mask that stench that's on the rest of the team and the real issues that you have up and down your roster, your coaching staff, your front office, so on and so forth. Since 2023, Patrick Mahomes, passing yards per game, passer rating, QBR, all down. All down. On the flip side, interceptions, sacks, all up. Why? Because he's being asked to carry an inferior roster week in and week out. If he still has guys like McDuffie and Ward and Sneed, maybe he doesn't have to feel the need to force a pass in a double coverage to try to make something happen. Maybe if he still has a Tyreek Hill, he's not worried about throwing a ball off the hands of Juju Smith-Schuster or Hollywood Brown or whatever. Maybe if he has Joe Thuney still in front of him, he doesn't have to worry about scrambling for his life and taking sacks rather than forcing a turnover. The Kansas City Chiefs have failed Patrick Mahomes. They are wasting the prime years of one of the greatest players we have ever seen. Patrick Mahomes is on the trajectory to be the greatest quarterback in NFL history. He's going to have all the numbers of a guy like Aaron Rodgers or Peyton Manning. He started off his career. He's going to be winning at the pace, at the clip of a Tom Brady. We'll get to Tom Brady actually in a few minutes. Got thoughts on him as well. And instead of consistently putting a roster around him that's going to make him stay in contention where he doesn't have to be a superhero, he doesn't have to put on the cape every third down, they're taking stuff away. And they're saying, oh, Patrick, you got it. We're going to take this from you. We're going to take that from you. No, Patrick's got it. Don't worry about it. So now he enters the 2026 season coming off a torn ACL, right? So we'll see whenever he comes back. Travis Kelce, more than a step slow. Don't let the stats fool you. Like you talk to anybody who covers the NFL, they'll say, despite the numbers look okay relative to the rest of his career. Travis Kelce is not the same guy whatsoever. Rashee Rice, who was supposed to be the number 1 option, in line to get suspended again. I'm not going to get around to that. That's a whole different conversation. My man can't stay out of the, police blotter. It's ridiculous. Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, I mentioned, they're better in Madden than they are in real life in terms of football. I don't want to disparage those guys, but they are being miscast in the role that they're being asked to do in Kansas City. I just mentioned they cut their starting right tackle, Jawan Taylor. They have a bottom 10 rush offense headlined by arguably the least talented backfield in the NFL, Isaiah Pacheco, Kareem Hunt. Like that's the reason why, as of this recording, they're being linked to guys like Kenneth Walker because they're trying to replenish that offense and get some juice to it. The Chiefs are in line to miss the playoffs again. Again. Think about that. You would have never said that about Tom Brady and the Patriots back in the day when that was considered like the model franchise of the NFL. Can you imagine telling yourself 3, 4, 5 years ago that Patrick Mahomes in the middle of his prime would miss the playoffs 2 consecutive seasons? And don't blame it on the injury because they were going to miss the playoffs before he got hurt. Like, that's ridiculous. So again, I ask you, why would you leave all that money on the table, Patrick? Why? You made a ginormous, tremendous mistake by putting your trust in a front office that seems more interested in taking from you rather than giving you something in return. Oh, God, you got me all riled up here. I'm going to end it with this. Okay, I'm going to end it with this one. I'm already going longer than I thought I was going to. So one of the big stories this week, and as of this recording, it still hasn't happened, but I anticipate it's going to happen any day, any minute now. I actually saved this for last because I wanted to make sure that if it happened, I could react in real time. And as of now, which is about 11:20 a.m. Pacific, it hasn't happened. But all signs point to the Las Vegas Raiders trading away all-pro defensive end Max Crosby sometime in the next couple of days, maybe next week. I know that you guys are recliner media, you're Broncos fans. You probably love to hear that, right? You don't want Max Crosby in your division. Get him out here. Go to Baltimore, go to Dallas, go wherever, right? Let him get paid by somebody else. We don't got to worry about a guy coming off the edge like that. And as a Raider fan, a long-suffering Raider fan, full disclosure, I am a Raider fan. I am very disappointed in the Tom Brady era of Raiders football. Now, Tom Brady, his resume is unapproachable. 7 Super Bowls, 3 MVPs. I think he led the NFL in yards, like career yardage, because he played forever. Like, his GOAT case cannot be debated by any way, shape, or form, right? And as this Max Crosby thing is playing out in the media, and we see what's happened so far in the last 2 years with Tom Brady, it got me thinking. Tom Brady is like the Michael Jordan of the NFL. You'd be like, well, of course, Michael Jordan's the greatest NBA player. Tom Brady's the greatest NFL player. Like, that's an easy comparison. That's not what I mean. I mean, that's part of it, but that's not what I mean. Michael Jordan, for all his greatness on the court, was an absolutely terrible owner. Okay. Let me just, refresh your memory in case you forget. Do the names Kwame Brown, Adam Morrison, Cody Zeller, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist ring a bell? All top 5 picks taken when Michael Jordan was an owner. Could not identify talent if it was standing in front of him. Like, that was just not his forte. Couldn't do it. They kept finding ways to botch front office hiring, coaching hirings. They were a laughingstock during his tenure, both in Washington and again with Charlotte a few years later. And now you look at Tom Brady, and we're seeing the same thing happen, where he was great on the field, in the field of play, between the lines. Once he got to sit up in that box in the owner section, kind of started to fall apart. All right. Since joining the Raiders, this is all documented. I'm not just saying this out of turn. This is all reported by legitimate reporters and accepted as truth. Tom Brady personally recruited and signed off on the hiring of Pete Carroll, fired after year 1. The hiring of Chip Kelly, making him the highest paid offensive coordinator in football, fired mid-season, couldn't even get to the end of the season. The acquisition of Geno Smith, who they just cut on Friday, didn't work out. And of course, the hiring of GM John Spytek, who is still there, by the way, but only because he went to college with Tom Brady and was part of the Bucs staff when he played there. So, I mean, there's kind of some nepotism hire. I'm not going to say it is what it is, right? But that's the reality. That's the truth. These are things that happened. This is not an opinion. That's fact. All right. Back in January, about a month and a half ago, ESPN did a long-form piece detailing what went wrong during the Pete Carroll era with the Raiders. And in it, if you read it, one of the things they mention is that Tom Brady's influence actually added to the dysfunction within the organization. An anonymous Raiders executive said at the time, Tom has never run a team. I keep telling people Tom has all this influence, but Tom isn't in the building and he doesn't have any experience with this. That is 1,000% accurate. Tom Brady is moonlighting as an owner while he jet sets around, trying to sell flag football events and do his work for Fox as a broadcaster, which he's gotten better at, full disclosure. He's gotten a lot better than what he was in the first season. But being the owner and the decision maker, the lead decision maker for the Raiders, has not been his sole focus since he's come aboard. In the Tom Brady era, my Las Vegas Raiders are 7-27. Since Tom Brady started hanging around with Mark Davis, the Raiders are the worst team in football. So in that regard, Tom Brady would probably kill to be like MJ. At least MJ, as an owner, won like 40% of his games. You know how many game wins we have to win to start off 2026 for the Raiders to get to a 40% win clip under Tom Brady? It's embarrassingly bad. We've been bad for 2 decades, but this might be the worst, segment of Raider football during that time. And now, again, you got the Max Crosby stuff looming over our head. But even further down the road, got the NFL draft, right? Got the number 1 pick. And that's part of the reason why Max Crosby's so miffed at the team, is because they insisted on losing down the stretch and sitting him so that they could have the best odds of getting the number 1 pick in the draft. And obviously it worked out because now they have the number 1 pick, and it may or may not have alienated their best player, and they have to trade him here in a couple hours, whatever it is. All signs point to the Raiders taking Fernando Mendoza, number 1. It's not a shocker. It's kind of been well reported, well documented, basically since the middle of the college football season. In fact, Tom Brady said back in December, quote, "I love everything about his game." Talking about Mendoza. It's like, well, I mean, he's cool. I like him. He's a really good college player. He's very productive, won the Heisman. But if you follow any of the draftniks, if you talk to any scouts, if you talk to any executives, there's nothing special about Fernando Mendoza. As my headphones fall out for the second time today. I got to get new headphones, man. There's nothing special about him. He doesn't wow you with arm talent. He doesn't have, the amazing fleet of foot action. He's a big guy. He's about 6'5", but he's not what you would consider to be, in terms of traits, an elite option. Like, that's just not what he is. Not saying you have to be, but that's the reality, right? I started thinking, like, why would Tom Brady love everything, speak so glowingly about Fernando Mendoza? So, well, I mentioned they're both about 6'5", right? So they both were seen as afterthoughts in most of their college careers, right? Like Mendoza famously under-recruited, had to play at Cal for a few years. Both more cerebral than talented, right? Like, they have that in common. Both kind of statuesque in the pocket. I saw a report that, according to Pro Football Focus, that Fernando Mendoza was one of the worst rated quarterbacks in the NFL, in college, when it came to, pressure. Like, he just doesn't move well with pressure. That national championship game notwithstanding, where he had a good run in the end zone, just historically, that's not his forte. Like Brady, Mendoza's more of an underdog type story. So is Fernando Mendoza really the slam dunk number 1 pick where we're not even consider anybody else? Or is it that Tom Brady just sees a guy who kind of looks like him, talks like him, acts like him, so he assumes he's going to have the same career as him? And if that's what you think, Tom, you're going to be wildly disappointed, because there's a lot of things that had to go your way for you to have the career that you did. You're a great player. I'm not going to discredit Tom Brady being a great player, but there was a lot, like, he always had a top 5 defense. The Raiders aren't close to a top 5 defense. Bill Belichick had to cheat a couple of times for them to win a couple of Super Bowls, right? Like, I don't think my Raiders are going to do that in today's 2026, right? But there was a scout that says something in The Athletic last week talking about Fernando Mendoza. And here's what he said, because they were projecting what they think the top 10 is going to look like. He said, "I think everyone just kind of assumes they go that way with Mendoza, but I don't think he's surefire at all. I like the Alabama guy, Ty Simpson, better." That's not a hot take, guys. That's not a out of left field. Like, I can't believe he said that. Like, that is a legitimately sound, researched opinion. Fernando Mendoza won the Heisman, put up great numbers in Indiana. For my money, arguably one of the greatest individual seasons from a team that we've ever seen with Indiana Hoosiers. What a great story they were. But did you know that under Curt Cinetti, he had 5 different starting quarterbacks in each of his last 5 seasons, including Mendoza, all of whom went on to win all conference honors? So what you're saying is every single quarterback who plays under Curt Cinetti puts up big numbers, wins at a high clip. What's different about Fernando Mendoza? Is it the fact that he's 6'5", 225, that they just assume now that he's going to be great in the NFL? Like, it doesn't work that way. You have to separate the success that he had in college with how it's going to translate in the NFL. And it seems like Tom Brady and my Raiders are so desperate to land a quarterback that they're jumping headfirst at the first guy who's available. This is a historically weak quarterback class. And yet, by all accounts, by all the reporting that we've seen come out in the last, 2 months, they're not even considering anybody else. They're not even saying like, hey, you know what? Sonny Styles at Ohio State is pretty damn good. Maybe we'll look at him. Like, Bain from Miami, he's a damn good passer. Maybe we can get him. No, like they are locked and loaded on one guy who, according to ESPN, if they were to rank the number of the quarterbacks coming out of college since 2017, would be the 8th best quarterback available, behind the immortal Zach Wilson of all people, behind the diminutive Bryce Young of all people. So I don't get it. I don't understand. And so I'm going to close with this. Tom Brady, you don't want to make an enemy out of me. If you go and fix your lips and you decide to trade the best player on our team, Max Crosby, for anything less than what the Cowboys got from Micah Parsons, we are going to have problems. Tom Brady, if you don't even entertain the idea of taking somebody other than Fernando Mendoza at the top of the draft, we are going to have problems. You need to get your head out of the sand and focus on what we're doing here. Raider Nation has been suffering long enough, Tom. We need you to lock the F in, figure this out. Don't make any more mistakes, because your era of Raider football has been an embarrassment. Stop worrying about flag football with the Paul brothers. Start worrying about real football with the Raiders. That's my Stephen A impression. All right, that's it from me. Much longer podcast than I was expecting. Again, shout out to Michael and everybody in Recliner Me to give me this opportunity to speak to you all and share my takes on this platform. We're going to be back at it every Friday from now on. That's the plan moving forward. And once a week, we'll see. Maybe if it does well, maybe they'll say, hey, maybe Rob G can do twice a week. I don't know. We'll see. But for now on, that's it. Episode 1, the restricted area with me, Robert Guerra. Rob G, if you're nasty. Talk to y'all next week.